Hello and welcome to the fifth episode of Bare Bones for the Practical PM series. In this series, we cut through the fluff and get to the essence of the topics which are important to product managers. In the previous episode, we started discussing metrics. We specifically spent time on North Star metric and its breakdown. We had closed the last episode by pointing out that while North Star metric is of prime importance, for the medium and long term success of the product and the business, we need to work on user experience and user satisfaction with the product as well. We ideally want to delight the users, but a North Star metric focused approach may not let us work on these areas. One of the first steps towards ensuring that we work on these areas is by defining the metrics for them. So let us dive into the possibilities now. One of the most popular ways to define user experience metrics is NPS, Net Promoter Score. How is this calculated? It is calculated based on a single survey question asking users how likely are they to recommend the product or business in questions to their friends and colleagues on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being not likely at all and 10 being very likely. Users selecting 1 to 6 are considered detractors. Users selecting 7 or 8 are considered passives. Users selecting 9 or 10 are considered promoters. Net promoter score is then calculated as percentage of promoters minus percentage of detractors. So suppose you surveyed 200 people in your NPS survey. 120 of them selected 9 or 10. So 60% of your users are promoter. Let us say 20 of them selected 7 or 8. So you have 10% passives. And the remaining 60 of them selected between 1 to 6. So you have 30% detractors. So your net promoter score is 60, that is percentage of promoters, minus 30, that is percentage of detractors, equal to 30. The biggest thing that works for NPS as a metric is that it is easy to understand and it seems to hold you to high standards as far as user experience is concerned. Because of the subtraction of detractors from the promoters, it is not enough for you to have a decent number of users with good experience. You must ensure good experience across the board to avoid detractors as well. A score like NPS is a good starting point for having some measure of how happy the users are with your product. However, it is not a panacea, although sometimes it is made out to be. A few things to keep in mind before you start taking decisions based on NPS. First, the way the NPS question is framed doesn't work for every product. There are many reasons why recommendation may not be the thing for your product. There is in fact a social media joke circulating on Windows 10 NPS survey which illustrates the point. The joke is a screenshot where the user has given a very low score on the NPS and in the follow-up question says very pointedly that people don't go around recommending operating systems to their friends or colleagues. I don't know if Microsoft actually does such an NPS survey for Windows 10, but what this makes amply clear is that recommendation question NPS is pointless here. In the product-driven acquisition episode of this series, we had discussed when referrals do or do not work for a product. A lot of those examples will have a parallel here also on when NPS does or does not make sense. If you know that NPS question in its standard form does not make sense, you can still use the idea by using a different question. For example, your question can be how likely are you to continue using the product instead of how likely are you to recommend the product. But there is another thing to keep in mind about the NPS score. Unlike a North Star metric, NPS is difficult to break down into smaller actionable metrics. There is no logical breakdown available. You can try creating some kind of background by having follow-up questions to NPS, which will ask the users to rate their experience with the product on different dimensions. For example, in a content product NPS, you may want to ask questions about whether the users find the content relevant, entertaining, useful, etc., whether their reading experience is good, whether search works well, and so on. And then you can try to see which of these components correlate highly with the NPS score. So the components that correlate highly might be considered the logical breakdown option for an NPS score. But whether improving a highly correlated component would actually improve the NPS score is difficult to say because of limited reliability of surveys to capture these real-world correlations. It is also difficult because of the nature of calculation of the NPS score. For example, if a user giving a score of 1 starts giving a score of 6, it won't make a difference in NPS score because both would still be classified as detractors. Similarly, if you messed up and moved many users from 6 to 1, NPS score won't be affected. So NPS or some modified version of it may be a good mechanism to keep an eye on overall user sentiments, but the actionability of this metric is limited. There are other ways to keep an eye on the user experience and have actionable metrics. Two of these are your customer support tickets, and if you have an app, then reviews on Play Store or App Store. Both of these take some work to convert into metrics. Customer support tickets can be tagged with common issues, and you can track the number of tickets received under each tag as a percentage of your active user base. If the user experience issue is such that it generates support tickets, then fixing it should lead to decrease in support tickets in that tag. Your customer support team may already be doing such tagging. If they are not, or if the tagging is not sufficiently helpful, you may want to work with them to come up with a system that is helpful. While customer support ticket tagging is likely happening as a part of the customer support process in the organization, review tagging may need active effort. But reviews can also be tagged in a manner similar to the customer support tickets, and measurable metrics can be put in place. If you do a launch to fix issues that crop up in these two places, then you should see a drop in complaints post-launch. That will be a measurable impact. Customer support tickets mostly give negative signals. You can find out issues to be fixed from there. Even reviews are heavily skewed towards negative feedback. It is more difficult to get a user with positive experience to write a review than a user with negative experience. So while these two can help you construct metrics around negative experiences that need fixing, they may not give enough signals about experiences that can be improved further. User surveys about experiences or open roadmaps where users can vote on what they want next in the product can be used to construct metrics around such cases. Then, engagement metrics are a great indicator of whether something improved the user experience or not, especially when we are talking about things that the users are supposed to use actively on the product. To take an example from an earlier episode, if you noticed on your e-commerce platform that most users who come within 2 days of placing an order go to the order tracking page to check the status, then you can improve the user experience by placing a direct link to order tracking on their landing screen itself. It is unlikely to improve your North Star metric of number of orders, but should definitely improve user experience. And you would know that it has happened if this link on the landing screen gets used a lot. Other kinds of user experiences may be about making users live on the product smoother and easier. For example, in an e-commerce product, it can be something that helps them check out faster. The metric for this can be easily constructed in the form of the average time taken by the users from the time they add a product to the cart to the time they finally place an order. And any improvement here should be clearly measurable. You may have realized by now that many different kinds of metrics need to be constructed to measure and make decisions on user experience. Hence, the decision making and resource allocation here may not be as obviously logical as the pieces that are driven by the North Star metric. Product leadership has to play an important role in decision making here, and also in defining for the rest of the team which metrics should matter to them at any point of time. Decisions may also need to be taken which cannot be constructed around any product metric. There may be requirements around branding or rebranding of the product, for example, or a strategic push around taking bets in certain directions. But wherever it is possible to construct and measure metrics and drive decisions based on them, you should be doing that. Also, while I mentioned that user experience related decisions may have to be taken with considerations other than metrics in mind, it doesn't mean that one starts justifying every one of their pet improvement idea in its name. If anything, the ideas that cannot be justified by metrics should have to pass a much higher bar of judgment to be considered for implementation. Otherwise, the team will be doing a lot of busy work in changing the radius of button corners, playing around with shades of color, and highlighting different so-called important pieces of information in the name of improving user experience without it doing any good to the product or the company or the user. That's it for this episode. Episode 20 of the Practical PM series has metrics related discussion that is a natural successor to this and the previous episode of the Bare Bones series. I don't want to be repeating the content, so if you have not watched the episode 20 of the Practical PM series, please watch it for the discussion around project specific metrics and an understanding of input, output and check metrics. Even if you have watched it, rewatching will not hurt. Thank you so much for watching this episode. We will pick up another topic of interest to product managers in the next episode. So do not forget to tune in.